to come on. Am I tripping? I can't see nothing.
Shalom.
Well, what's good, bro?
Okay, my dad already on the BS, so Esau trying to work, but
I got you, bro. Hold on. I'm about to pull up the what's it called. All right. You can go ahead and introduce it, bro. You got the intro.
all right, Shalom. Another video, another edification. All right, but before we get started, I want to, of course, give all honor and glory unto Yahweh, by Shibin Yahushai, by Shibin Kakadash. Double honor to the apostles and the elders of the house of David, patiently waiting for the second coming of Yahushai, our Lord and Savior. Hearty Shalom to the Akim and Akwat out there. Yeah, that's good, right?
Straight. All right, guys. Today's video is about witchcraft and spirituality. Without further ado, I'm going to let Brother and Jemai start it off.
All right. So, as Brother Darren was saying, we're going to witchcraft and spirituality today. We're going to pull out, a few precepts to basically warn you and let you know, just to get out of that, and knowing that witchcraft is not just, typical witchcraft, what you know of magic and, divination, but it's a broad variety of, certain things that fall under it. But first precept we're going to pull out is 1 Samuel chapter 15 and verse 23. And it says, "For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, except subtleness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Most High, he hath also rejected thee from being king." All right. So, as it's saying, rebellion is that sin of witchcraft. All right. We're going to get into more precepts alluding to that. But witchcraft is very abominable in the eyes of the Most High. And it's equal to iniquity in a sense. Iniquity is nothing but an abundance of sin, And as I said, basically when you go under this and you worshiping this, the Lord will reject you, man. All right. But so now I'm gonna jump to Exodus chapter 22 and verse 18, just more solidifying it as an abomination. All right, and it says, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." All right, and it's as simple as that. There's no explaining behind it, because the Lord said it himself. All right, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." So in days of old, for all the people out there that's involving themselves in different types of witchcraft, and divinations, you will be put to death, simply. All right. And further allude to that, going to continue within the law and go to Leviticus chapter 19, verse 31. It says, "Regard not them that have familiar spirits, neither seek after wizards to be defiled by them. I am the Lord, your God. Right. Most High is saying it right there, man. I'm going out after those, that try to seek out to speak to the dead, right? And, different wizards that, in all reality, are a true abomination to the Most High and trying to blaspheme the Most High by putting themselves on a pedestal in terms of trying to show different quote unquote powers and magical, powers or whatever. But further allude to that, I'm going to go to Leviticus 20 and verse 6. And it says, "And the soul that turneth after such as have familiar spirits, and after wizards, to go a whoring after them, I will even set my face against that soul, and will cut him off from among his people." All right, that just further solidifying that to not go into those different types of witchcraft, which is abominable in the eyes of the Most High. But to even further solidify it, I'm going to jump down to verse 27, and it says, "A man also or woman that hath a familiar spirit, or that is a wizard, shall surely be put to death. They shall stone them with stones, their blood shall be upon them." All right, the word of Most High is concrete, and people love to say that the old law is done away with, in which the law have dominion over man as long as he liveth. All right, but before I give back to Brother Darren, I'm going to go into different definitions of witchcraft. All right. Witchcraft, it says, witchcraft is the practice of magical skills, spells, and abilities. Witchcraft is a broad term that varies culturally and societally, and thus can be difficult to define with precision. Right, but to go to the Webster Dictionary version, it says the use of sorcery and magic, right, communication with the devil or with the familiar, right, an irresistible influence or fascination. That could definitely allude to, more so the zodiacs and all that, but we're gonna go and get into that later. But with that, I'm gonna give it to Brother Darren. He's gonna go into different types of witchcraft that you may or may not know of.
All right, so the first one we're gonna go into is yoga. All right, so the origin. Well, before I begin with that, when you understand that we're Israelites, right? We should only be dwelling, in the Bible to be, But I'm gonna close with that one. The first one that I'm gonna go over is yoga. The origins of yoga and where it comes from and things like that. So the beginnings of yoga were developed by basically the Indians, right? The Eastern Indians, not the Native Americans. So this like over 5,000 years ago, right? So when people are practicing yoga and things like that, they're not dwelling in their right mindset. And a lot of people have to understand Hinduism was created by the Ishmaelites along with the help of Esau Edom. So once you're dwelling with Esau Edom and things like that, you're already dwelling with witchcraft because Esau Edom is the daughter of Babylon. So the next one that people also love to do is astrology. People love to do horoscopes, go by the so-called birthstone and things like that. So what a lot of people have to understand is astrology originated in Babylon, right? So that should be a red sign, a red flag anyways, because Babylonians were known for witchcraft and wizardry and things like that anyways. So a verse that goes with it would be Isaiah 47, verses 13 and 14. It says, "Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let down the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators." I'm tripping. "Stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. Behold, they shall be as stubble. The fire shall burn them. They shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. There shall not be a coal to warm it, not fire to sit before it." So like I said, like it says in Ecclesiastes, there's no new thing under the sun. So individuals just like, oh, this is my horoscope. I act like this because I'm such and such. That's not how that goes. The Most High only created 12 tribes. The horoscopes are basically what Satan wants you to dwell in. And a lot of people don't know the history of astrology or anything like that. And like I said before, if it originated in Babylon, that's already a red flag anyways. And what I just read, Isaiah 47:13-14, it just gave you an understanding of what the Most High wants you to do. Is like, stay away from those astrologers and stargazers and things like that, because he's going to punish them. They're going to be as stubble. So the next one is tarot card readings, right? So what it says is, building on court D. Geblin's Egyptian connection, Edeliah claimed that tarot cards originated with the legendary Book of Thoth, which supposedly belonged to the Egyptian god of wisdom. So what other individuals have to understand also is Egyptians got their teaching from Babylonians as well. They still worship, their mother goddess and things like that. So that should be a red flag for the Israelites out there anyways. To go along with that, Isaiah 8:19, it says, when they shall say unto you, seek unto them that have familiar spirits, and unto wizards that peep and that mutter, should not a people seek unto their power for the living to the dead? So an example will be when Saul went to that medium to get an understanding from Samuel, if I am correct.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have to understand, with Moses and the wizards, when, he was talking to Pharaoh and he was letting them know that the Most High said, let my people go. And, Pharaoh consulted with the sorcerers and wizardry and things like that. So basically, stay away from wizards and stay away from witches, and it's hard to do that because you're not aware, they're not going to make it known like that. Of course, everybody in the industry, how that goes. But it's people every day, that you pass by every day that may, be a wizard or, a warlock, whatever you want to call it, and you don't even know it. So you have to be wary of that and stay away from that and protect your light. But I'm going to pass it to Brother Jemiah to continue, and we're going to jump into Judges chapter 6, verse 30, and he's going to read 30 and 31.
And to allude, before I go on to this story, this is going on based around Gideon, who was the son of Joash, and he was visited basically by the Most High. The Most High told him to take down the altar of Baal, which is, a false god in which the Canaanites or, our people pursued to worshiping, back in those ancient times. And he was seen as nothing but an idol in the eyes of the Most High, and should have been seen as an idol as well, alluding to the Israelites. But to go along with it, sum it up, start at verse 30. All right, Judges chapter 6, verse 30. Says, then the men of the city said unto Joash, bring out thy son, that he may die, because he hath cast down the altar of Baal, and because he hath cut down the grove that was by it. And Joash said unto all that stood against him, will ye plead for Baal? Will ye save him? He that will plead for him, let him be put to death while it is yet morning. If he be a god, let him plead for himself, because one has cast down his altar. Right. And what Joash is basically alluding to was just, if he's a so-called God that you all worship, he should be able to execute his own judgments, right? Especially for someone that has taken down his altar. But, basically making the people that worship him look foolish, to be trying to take out or pursue to put someone to death for someone that's supposed to be a God, right? But we go to more precepts alluding to witchcraft. We're going to go to Galatians chapter 5. I'm going to start at verse 19. All right? And it says, now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like, of which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of the Most High. Right. So when you pursue and try to go into those things that fall along idolatry and witchcraft, and the various topics that we address, you're not going to be able to inherit the kingdom of the Most High, man. So you got to come up out of that, right? But we're going to jump to First Chronicles. First Chronicles 10 and 13. All right. This is going along with what Brother Darren was talking about earlier, going along with how Saul basically inquired of familiar spirits. Now we're going to start at verse 13. It says, so Saul died for his transgression, which he committed against the Lord. All right, that's going back into what we addressed in the law. All right. But even against the word of the Most High, which he kept not, and also for asking counsel of one that had familiar spirit to inquire of it. So basically, Saul, he died for his transgression, which is also sin. He have spiritual understanding, right? Because he inquired familiar spirits to try to communicate with Samuel, basically communicating with the dead. Right? We're gonna jump to 1 Samuel chapter 28, and we'll start at verse 7. All right. It says, Then said Saul unto his servants, Seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said unto him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. Right. And as I said earlier, Saul eventually communicated with that woman. She was able to give him the ability to communicate with Samuel, because the Lord, he wasn't dealing with him, man. He was trying to figure out why.
Yeah, she was a medium.
Yeah.
It's like how people be going on these ghost stories and be like, yeah, I can connect with this family member, or I can do this and that. You speak into familiar spirits, so you shouldn't be doing none of that. The only thing you should consult to is the Most High. So he went around and tried to go to Samuel, which wasn't having it, and was basically, they were trying to take the keys of the spirit realm from the Most High, and that wasn't going.
To death, man. We'll jump to Deuteronomy chapter 18. I'm going to start at verse 9. It says, When thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abomination of those nations. Right. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter pass thorough the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Most High. And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee. All right. The Lord, he repeated himself again, man. When he's talking about pass through the fire, talking about sacrificing, like child sacrificing, divination, an observer of time, someone that tries to predict the time, like in our reality, you're not gonna be able to do that. All right. An enchanter, a witch, and charmers, But let me jump to 2 Kings chapter 21. I'm gonna start at verse 6. It says, And he made his son pass through the fire and observe times, and used enchantments, and dealt with familiar spirits and wizards. He wrought much wickedness in the sight of the Most High to provoke him to anger. All right, and it's talking about King Manasseh, who was one of the kings of Israel, I believe. And they were just they was elaborating on what he did within his reign, right? And just going along with the wickedness in which he was showing before the Most High. Right.
Yeah, to throw into that one, what you read through like Second Kings and First Kings and things like that, you'll understand that it was a lot. There was a lot of kings, you know, when Israel split up. You know, you had the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom that split, and you had a lot of kings, you know, that did evil in the sight of the Most High, and you know, and a lot of people just doing evil. And like you were saying, one of them was Manasseh, and you know, this is what he did. And a lot of them did evil in the sight of the Lord, but you know, a few did it. But at the end of the day, he has to punish us as a nation.
Yeah.
So,
But one more precept, just for if, you know, we do have people that come across this video and don't want to hearken unto the various precepts and ordinances, you know, different situations we give you to basically forewarn you. All right, this is just going to solidify it. We jumping in Revelation chapter 21, and I'm going to go to verse 8. And it says, "But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death." Right. Now, lake of fire, that's alluding to when the missiles come and destroy Babylon the Great. Basically, you're going to be left in that lake of fire, man. You're going to perish simply because you don't hearken unto the word of the Most High and come out of those different abominable acts, man. But with that, I'm going to give it back to Brother Darren, and then we're going to close it out.
all right. So what he was reading in Revelation when he's talking about 21 and 8, basically what our people are doing now. You know, when we are here teaching the truth, they're unbelieving. You know, they eat abominable, as in they're not celebrating. You know, they're polluting the Sabbath. They're eating. They think they can eat whatever they want. You know, they're lying, cheating, stealing, drinking, smoking. You know, adultery, murderers, of course. You know, you got people out here murdering each other, whoremongers. You know, our women and our men are just out here, you know, just out here going from one body to another one. Sorcerers, you know, a lot of people be doing like dealing with crystals. They're doing stuff like reading horoscopes, or they doing tarot card reading and things
The
like that.
chakras.
Yeah, they're dwelling in evilness, and you see it all the time on TV. You know, you either got something that has to do with witches or warlocks, or you know, things like that. That's really evil in the eyes of the Most High. Like mediums, you know, you get ghost stories when you got people that's like, oh, I couldn't communicate with the dead and things like that. No, you're going to get, you know, you're gonna get banished for that. You know, you're gonna die basically. Sorcerers and idolaters, like these celebrities, you know, people are idolizing them, or money. They're anything that you're doing, that you're putting before the Most High, you're idolizing it. You know, and liars. You know, people be swearing, you know, to by the Most High or by their family or things like that, and they be lying the whole time. So he's saying, like my brother said, you know, they're gonna have their part in the lake of fire, which is like ICBMs, when, you know, and missiles and things like that, when Babylon is completely destroyed. And I'm gonna continue to Revelation 22 and 15 and it says, "For without are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie." So just like, you know, going back to Revelation 21 and 8, and I'm gonna jump to 1 Peter real quick, chapter 5, verse 8. "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour." So you get that a lot when people be going to concerts. A lot of people don't understand that, you know, these celebrities are really doing rituals right before your eyes. And when you're not sober and you're, you know, drinking and smoking and you're like intoxicated, it makes it easier for demons to, you know, bother your soul and darken your light, because you're not vigilant, you're not sober. So when the devil is doing things like this and like tricking you and things like that, you're falling for it because you're an easy target and you're an easy prey. And this is what I want people to understand at the end, which I'm gonna close with, which is Joshua 1 and 8. You know, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, you know, I meditate daily and things like that. But what do you meditate on? You know what I'm saying? Are you meditating, trying to focus on your chakras or your third eye or things like that? And that's not what we're focusing on. So I'm going to read Joshua 1:8. This is what you should focus on. This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. So the only thing you should be meditating day and night on is these laws, statutes, and these holy days. What you got to understand is the law of Moses, which people think is done away with, is not. These laws are what is going to bring you to the new kingdom and going to, like he said in the Lord's Prayer, on earth as it is in heaven. So what he's telling you in heaven, which is dominion anyways, when we regain dominion, you're still going to be following these laws. These laws were never done away with. The Hamashiach said, I'm not here to change the laws or destroy it. He's here to uphold it. So when a lot of people saying, oh, the law is done away with, no, this is what you meditate on. This is how you get your power, your godlike powers back. Because like it says in Psalms 82, verses 6 and 7, ye are gods. Like, we're judges. We're the ones who's supposed to set the laws. And when we're going off dwelling in witchcraft and other spirituality, we're demonizing ourselves. We have to set the balance. We're the right hand. We're the righteous side. You already got Esau, Edom, and the other nations listening to Esau, Edom. We have to, there's balance to everything. So when people are like, oh, I'm doing yoga, or I'm meditating on this, or I'm a Buddhist and things like that, you need to do your research on what it means to be a Buddhist, or where did Hinduism understand from. And the majority part that's getting people confused about this world is, I think it's Isaiah 1:3, if I am correct. Like a lot of people don't understand. It's like the basics, and it says the ox knows his owner, and the ass his master's crib, but Israel does not know, my people does not consider. So if you don't understand who you are, then you're not going to understand your customs. You're not going to understand why you created, what's your purpose. Like Ecclesiastes 12:13 says, fear Yahweh and keep the commandments. That's what you're supposed to do. So in order to do that, you have to meditate the law. You need to know this book. It's hard to do, but you should know a good amount of verses. You should know this backwards and forwards, and not trying to be, dealing in spiritualism and things like that. Like, we understand spirituality is important, but our spirituality is in the Word. So when people just think, oh, I'm spiritual because I'm doing this and that, you're really playing with demons and don't even know it. On top of you still drinking and smoking and doing other this nonsense, you need to focus on these laws, just like Joshua 1:8 told you to do. You need to do your research on what it means, where Hinduism comes from, just like I told you, or, sorcery and things like that. And a lot of people understand a lot of these occults get their understanding from Solomon. If you want to start from the basics, I would encourage you to go study the Mystery School of Babylon, all right, and also study Solomon when he went off. That's what you should understand, the occult knowledge and things like that, before you just dwell in yoga just because you see everybody doing it. He already told you, Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. So you got to be wise and, of course, sober and vigilant about these things. And I have a video I can send to people. People want to know, is it lawful to smoke weed? No. But I have a video that goes more into depth on explaining it. But, Brother Jamar, you got anything to add to that, man?
Yeah, like what Brother Darren was saying, like, you can't serve these things, go hoarding, as you per se, after these different spiritualities, like such as following zodiacs, following chakras, following, charmers, when that goes into having different diamonds or, different charms that sway different emotions. Like, you can't have those things and consider yourself a believer in the Most High, because, like I just said, that's going to whoredom. You're not having true faith. When you have true faith, that's when you're going to reverence the Most High. You're going to depend on Him to keep you spiritually grounded, and leveled. That's the only way that you're going to be able to serve the Most High. Is only reverencing Him, reverencing His Word. Praying for understanding when it comes to His Word. You can't just read it as a book, because it's prophetic and it's poetic. You understand? But one more verse I just want to throw in is Jeremiah 10:2, when it says, "Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the sounds of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them." Right? And the heathen, that alludes to, the lands that we have been taken captive in. You can't learn the ways of, the heathen when we're in this land, Babylon the Great. That's going along with holidays. We suggest that you, search into or look into, the different meanings and origins of all these different holidays, because you got to understand what you're getting yourself into before you just do it. But, we've been raised into accepting a lot of things that we've learned from this wicked country, this wicked place. But all this goes back to is just turning back to the Most High, repenting, you know. Right, just repenting. Repenting, turning back to the Most High. But you can close out, man.
All right. So with that, we want to give all praises, power, glory, and thanks to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Kakadash. Double honors to the elders, the prophets, the apostles, the wise men, our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Salutations to the hopeful elect that are out there pushing the truth, risking their lives and freedom to do so, doing the best they can to uphold the law, statutes, and the holy days. To them we say Shalom, Kwam Yasharala, and the Bible Ball. Shalom.
Shalom.